Hello, thanks for joining me, Dr. Drea's Creations. This is my first attempt at a Snow Globe Tumbler. Let's get started. I'm going to start off by just painting the tumbler in a white paint. I use a matte white paint. I taped off the top rim there with some electrical tape, and I also taped off the bottom where you screw on the cup to its bottom base there. So again, just white simple primer. I did not notice that my cup was not put on straight, so it was a little wobbly there, but that's okay. It's still getting the job done. So I have a few colors here. I'm using a soft blue, a white, and with a little bit of pearlescent inside of that white. Just going to kind of swirl this all over, add a little heat so that it kind of gets a little bit more fluid, starts to mix a little better. Just going to let that spin for a little while. Add some more blue just so I'm getting rid of all of my resin and I have a nice coverage. So I did top this off with a glitter. I just used a clear and I dumped a lot of glitter and I added that as well for the outer layer, and I called it a day. That's the glitter that I used. Isn't that pretty? I'm going to show you something about that glitter later too. So I'm just kind of looking at where I want to place my decals, and I of course want to start off with this really large snowflake because it's kind of going to be the center, the main focus of my cup. That is a shimmer blue, light blue vinyl. It was a little tricky to get off, but patience is rewarded when you're working with particular vinyls. Again, just looking where I want to place that, lining up my other decal there. I'm starting off from the center, working my way outward so that I can remove all of the air bubbles I possibly can. She will then lay on top of the snowflake. This is a water slide decal, and this is warm water. I'm just making sure she doesn't stay curled. Now, a water slide decal is actually transparent, and it will eventually pull away from the white backing there. Once it loosens up from the warm water, it should slide away from that backing. However, she's giving me some trouble here, so I'm just going to scratch that because I ended up blurring out her eye. So I'm going to move on to something I actually can do, which is adding the back side decal, which I made out of printable vinyl, and I combined a couple of images, put it inside of a oval shape, and then the printable vinyl itself is white, so that's what you're seeing as a background. But as you'll notice, because of the glitter that I chose on the outside, a lot of the decals are going to be bumpy, and I was a little worried about this to begin with, but more importantly, I started to become more worried about, see if you can't really see it, but they're pretty significant. So once I scratched that water decal, I actually went on with another printable vinyl decal, so that Elsa came out a little bit easier. The other thing is, I was kind of glad I went with this printable decal versus the water slide because it is transparent. The water slide decal is transparent. It wasn't going to show up as well. And again, I really wanted her to pop with that snowflake. I'm just working some final details around her hair here. She has some curly tendrils that are sticking up, which I know will eventually pop up in my resin. So I'm just going to cut them off now. Sometimes those really fine details don't lay quite as well, especially when you start to rub the resin onto the cup itself. So I'm just working her out of her excess there on the edge. So again, I was a little worried about how bumpy that glitter was because it had some actually really thick pieces in there that were not glitter. They were actually almost like little gems. But you'll see it really doesn't make a big difference at all in the final project. I just seemed concerned about it during my working process. I want that snowflake to kind of like come out from behind her. Again, working kind of from the center, working my way outward to make sure I get rid of all of those air bubbles. It's okay if she's a little bumpy, but it's not okay if she has air bubbles. I ended up taking that back decal off because I just wasn't happy with how large it was and how much space it took up, and it just didn't look very good. So I'm going to move on to the smaller snowflake that I'm going to add to the bottom, and then I'm going to add some different decals that I was a little bit more happy with. So these are shimmer silver vinyl that I cut into snowflakes. I actually removed that smaller snowflake later on here, you'll see. So with these, I went again back to the water slide decal because in the back of the cup, I was going to be okay with that, the color of the cup and the glitter shining through that particular decal. So on the back, I figured it would be okay for the transparency, again, to show a little bit more of the cup as well. What's going to show through this decal. And then because of the snowflake being on the bottom, you're going to get that combination there too. You'll see. Now I'm cutting this out freehand because it was going to take too long trying to make a solid background for that for the Cricut to cut around. So I'm just doing it freehand. Again, it was going to take a lot less time to do it freehand than trying to manipulate the Cricut to cut it exactly the way I wanted it to. And the Cricut would have cut it out in very great detail, going around each and every little leaf and berry there. Again, warm water. I am using a little bit warmer water than I did last time because I noticed the warmer the water, it worked a little bit faster from releasing from the back there. So I let it sit in the water for roughly 30 seconds or so. I don't run a timer, I kind of generically count in my head. Waiting to kind of see how much water has soaked into the back of that water decal is kind of what I'm looking for there. And it should pull away from the backing rather easy, and I can kind of tell from looking at it that it's released from the backing itself. I'm going to get a solid surface here so that my cup's not moving around. I'm going to wet my cup a little bit, and then I'm going to gently slide that water decal off of its backing and onto my cup. And again, notice how it's transparent. So you're going to see the back of that cup really come through that decal, which I love. I want that glitter to show through. And I'm just going to move it around. Oh, I got a little flap there from taking it off the backing. Just going to fix that flap, make sure everything's completely flat. And then I'm going to start moving this decal around to the exact position I want. Once it's dry, it's going to stay there. Making sure to push out all the excess water from underneath, any air bubbles that are in there as well. I'm just going to add the other water decals here and speed this up for you without making you watch all that in slow-mo. Again, just finding the right positions, that makes me happy. Removing the excess water from underneath, the excess air bubbles. So now that those are all nice and dry, I'm going to add a clear coat of resin to seal in all my decals, because this is going to be a snow globe cup. This is going to be sitting in some sort of liquid, and you're going to see that challenge here. So I'm going to start by putting glue in the top rim, putting the clear outer shell in, making sure to press really hard so that it seats well inside of the top rim. I'm wiping away all of the excess glue, waiting till it dries 24 hours later, and now I'm going to add some water in there just to test to make sure that my glue did seal very well around that rim. Again, you're going to be able to tell if it's not seated well because it's not going to snap in and it's going to look crooked. So I'm not getting any leaks here. This is going to be played with by a 4-year-old. So I really need to make sure that I don't have any leaks. I'm going to kind of toss it around here a little bit. I know it seems like I'm being a little aggressive, but again, a 4-year-old's going to have this, so I better test it now. I'm not getting any water leaks, so I'm going to say we're good. No water. Yay. Very pleased. Now for the glycerin part, and I was eating chili cheese Fritos. Well, actually I was eating chili cheese hot dogs. I'm going to do a glycerin and water mixture. I'm going to do 4 tablespoons of water to 4 tablespoons of glycerin to 1 tablespoon of water. Again, 4 tablespoons of glycerin to 1 tablespoon of water. That seemed to be the perfect mixture for the consistency that I liked. I watched some other videos and everybody had different consistencies, so play around with the mixture that you are comfortable with. I did add these glitters into the mixture because again I wanted to see how the glitter was going to flow around. I tried to add this darker glitter and it seemed to like muddy up my glitter and just made it dark, and I really don't want it dark like that. I want it to be more icy like snow. So I'm okay with this viscosity and how this liquid is moving around, but I just wasn't happy with the glitter combination. So here's my second batch, and I'm rather pleased with this. It's a little bit more snowy. Again, more looking for how the glitter flows within the liquid itself, because that's kind of, a lot of the fun of having the cup is watching that liquid flow around with all the crystals inside or all the glitter inside. One little stir. I thought one had more like pepper flecks in it than the other one did, but I was mistaken. It's the same glitter. So I'm going to add my mixture. Which was very, very pleasing. But my 5 tablespoons, my 4 parts glycerin and 1 part water is simply not enough to fill the cup. So I went to make another batch and I didn't have enough glycerin, so it is what it is. Mix that, added it, add a little bit more water again because I ran out of glycerin. It is what it is. And kind of see how it's going to flow there with the glycerin and water mixture. Now I'm going to fill it up to that very bottom rim right there so that I can add some glue and screw on that bottom. But I'm pretty pleased with where that's filled, and it looks like I'm getting some decent flow. So you don't want to fill all the way up to the tippy top. Leave some space there because we're going to glue right here on this knob here on the screw part. Now here is where you're going to watch me make one of the many mistakes that I've made throughout making this cup, which is I'm using the remaining mixture that I had and adding it to the smaller cup. I'm sorry, to the smaller bottle. This smaller bottle has a needle nose topper there that you can kind of see in the front. But what I should not have done is added the glitter. It only clogs the nozzle. Terrible. This bottom piece originally came stuck together, but I just stuck it in the freezer, and it just pops right out after you leave it in the freezer for a little bit, so don't force it. I'm adding the glue to the center of the bottom. This is kind of like the cap. Okay, you're also going to notice a small hole, which I'll show to you shortly here, but I'm only adding glue to the center of this black part, which is the bottom screw, which holds in all the liquid. You are watching me make a major mistake. Major mistake here. Now this is Gorilla Glue that I'm using. This is non-foaming Gorilla Glue. It worked great to seal that top lip to the clear outer casing. So I know it works well for a seal and holding in the liquid. So here you're watching me screw on that cap. Now I only glued the center, and that's where I made a monumental mistake. You remember that little bottle that I filled? Well, because it has that little needle nose, I'm going to use the tiny little hole on the top of that black cap. See the little hole there? And fill the remainder all the way up to the top. I want all the air gone. See, there's a big air bubble there. Well, what happens is when you turn that cup right side up, there's this giant air bubble at the top, and so the cup doesn't really look full with liquid. So I'm topping it off here to make sure that the cup is completely full with liquid. You're getting a very small air bubble. See, there we go. Now what I did, you saw me make the previous mistake, so I corrected it, and this bottle does not have any glitter inside of it. It just has water, because again, I ran out of the glycerin. So you're, again, monumental mistake here. But the idea is just to fill that up right to the top. I just kept working it around, trying to make sure I got all the air out. I was trying to tip it up to see how much air bubbles were still showing. Trying to, again, get as much liquid in there as possible. Okay, let's try this again. So that was a major failure. And what happened was I didn't seal the outer part of that black rim. And because I didn't seal the outer edge, it leaked. So I unscrewed it and started over. Got the baby oil out because, well, I couldn't find any more of the glycerin. So I just kind of started over. I'm going back in with more Gorilla Glue after I've scraped out all the old stuff from the previous glue. I sprayed a little bit of water inside of this black cap because it's Gorilla Glue. Really getting the inside where it screws onto the cap. And this time I'm not forgetting to add glue to the outer rim so that it doesn't leak everywhere. This is the cap that holds all the liquid inside, so it is imperative that you get enough glue so that the liquid does not leak out of the cup. It is water activated, so I did use a spray bottle, sprayed a little mist of water in there before I added the glue. And then I'm going to carefully screw it onto the cup. I already filled it with some of my baby oil and glitter. I'm trying not to screw it, you know, too hard, too fast, so that it doesn't kind of slip, but I want it to be just tight enough. So I'm just kind of going slow. Again, realizing that there is glue on that outer rim. A lot of it's probably going to squish down or like leach out down into the baby oil. I'm fully aware. So I let that dry for 24 hours, and I'm going to top it off with some more baby oil. No glitter inside of the small bottle, again, because I don't want to clog that nozzle. I'm constantly wiping away the oil because this oil was a little tricky to get in there. Again, I'm just trying to fill it up so that I eliminate as much of that large air bubble as I possibly can. And then I covered it with some electrical tape. And now we're having some difficulty with putting the silver finishing cap on top of the black cap, the way they originally came, you know, stuck together. Well, there's an air bubble trapped inside, so it just keeps popping right back off. And of course there's a ton of Gorilla Glue in there. So George took this little silver cap from me, drilled a little hole in it so that it would eliminate the air bubble trapped in there, and that was going to get sealed with the Gorilla Glue, so it worked out really well. Again, just really slathered that in some Gorilla Glue, and we're good to go. It's going to seal in all that liquid. I am so pleased. I have 0 leaks. The decals are looking really good. The water, I'm sorry, not the water. The oil is flowing really well. I'm very pleased, guys. Totally worth all the headaches. I learned so much. All the challenges were worth it because, again, it was a learning process. So I will be making some more. I will be sharing my successes with my new challenged cup, the Snow Globe. I hope you enjoyed watching this video. I most certainly appreciate all of your views. Thank you so much for joining me. Again, look at that thing. It is so freaking cool. So happy, guys. Thanks for watching Dr. Drea's Creations. Please hit that like button and subscribe if you enjoyed watching.